to another Overwatch League video. So, as promised, going to be doing my updated power rankings after 2 weeks of Stage 4. So we got a better chance to see the meta. It just kind of varies on map. But there are definitely teams, like there are teams that'll run like Brigida on Hanamura. There are teams that don't run her on it. It's a very diverse meta. Probably the most, I'd say it's the most fun yet. Everyone was super freaked out about the most recent patch not being in. I was kind of one of those people. I wasn't freaking out as much as a lot of people, but I was saying they should have it on the same patch that we're playing on. But they said there were issues with the bug causing it to be unable to be paused, like the custom game, and that would be a big issue. If there were any technical issues, we wouldn't be able to pause the games. So it's understandable, I suppose, why they did it. They just couldn't get it like transferred over and 100% reliable for the competitive play. So in the end, I think it's worked out way better. I hate playing against New Hanzo. He's horrible to play against. And I feel like if New Hanzo was in, we'd be seeing a lot of him. And we wouldn't be seeing as diverse a hero pool for DPS as we have. So I think it's all worked out in the end. We got a little carried away with that. But, I mean, it's all good. So, I'm gonna say I'm not gonna talk about the stage playoffs right now. They're not super important to this. I'm gonna talk about the overall playoffs, and then I'm gonna go through my power rankings, and just do a little bit of explaining as to why I have each team where they are. So, in the overall standings, number 12, 0-34. It's the Shanghai Dragons. Their map differential is now -100. They're in trouble. They could very well go 0-40. 11th, we have the Florida Mayhem. They've struggled pretty mightily this stage, as I kind of thought they would, with multiple Tracer players, with Tracer not being as useful. They just don't. They never did have flexibility. They did add players, but they still don't have great flexibility as a team, and that has hurt them. So they're 6-28, sitting with a -64 map differential. Then in 10th, we have the Dallas Fuel. They're 9-25, map differential of -44. They've been playing very well this stage. They're 3-1, so that's cool to see. I guess I'll roll a couple highlights while we're in here. But anyway, they've been playing well this stage. They're 3-1. They've only lost to the Gladiators, who are unbeaten this stage. They beat a very good team in the Fusion. They've looked extremely good with the Brigida meta. They've really figured out how to do that. They figured out how to use their tanks. They can have Seagull playing Diva, but then on a map where they don't want Brigida or one of those heroes, then you got Seagull can flex to DPS, and then Mickey can go back to the Diva. So Dallas has been looking good. They're in 5th right now in the stage standings. They could very well make the stage playoffs. That would be really cool to see. But yeah, obviously their playoff hopes are done. They've been done. But it's nice to see them picking up some steam and playing well. Number 9, we got San Francisco Shock. They continue to be inconsistent. Look super, super good one week and really bad the next. They're 14-20. They have a -11 map differential. They're super young, and it shows. Very, very young team. When you talk about Sinatra and Super, I've talked about this a little bit in a previous video talking about the Shock, but they have kind of focused on the Sinatra Architect DPS. They've also brought in their backup, I guess, off tank in Choyobin, and he's been playing well. He was really popping off on the Roadhog in their last match. So very inconsistent team, but they can play with any of the teams in the league. I mean, I don't think they can beat Excelsior, but I don't think anyone can beat Excelsior. But, I mean, on any given day, the Shock could beat any team in the league besides the Excelsior. Like, they could beat the Spitfire, they could beat the Valiant, they could beat the Uprising, the Fusion, the Gladiators. They could beat any of them on a given day if they're playing well. But their problem is consistency, and that's why they're still sitting in 9th. Well, plus they got off to a really bad start overall. But that's it for the Shock. Number 8, we got Houston Outlaws. They're sitting at 18-16 with a +13 map differential. they're in huge trouble after getting wiped out by the Shock. Their map differential lead over some of the other teams vying for the playoff spots has disappeared. They've lost 2 games in a row. Their lack of flexibility and lack of being able to run dive is still showing, and it's still hurting them. If dive was completely out of meta and no one was running dive, man, this team would be super scary. They're really good at running like double snipers. They're really good at running those tank comps, but they don't have the flexibility. That's why I don't think they'll make the playoffs, and that's why they're sitting in 8th right now. Number 7, we have the completely slumping 0-4 this stage, Seoul Dynasty. Their record is now 19-15 with a map differential of only +11. I think they're done. I've talked about this in a couple of videos as well. They don't look good. They don't look coordinated. They don't have their confidence. They keep rotating their main tank. They haven't adjusted that well to the new meta. I just think Seoul's a mess. I think their coaching is really bad, and all their coaches need to be replaced. I don't know if I would think they would have brought over the same guys from Lunatic High, where they had so much success, but in Overwatch League they haven't found the same success. They really can't beat anyone right now. They got some easy matchups coming, and I think they'll win those. But I don't think they make the playoffs. I don't think they can win enough games to pass the Gladiators or Fusion. Speaking of them, number 6, it's the LA Gladiators. They finally made their way back into, well, for the first time, into the top 6. They're sitting at 20-14 with a map differential of +17. So they're 4-0 this stage. They look very good. They have had a couple easy matchups though to start these next couple days, which I'll talk about in the video for Wednesday when I do my predictions. They have some really tough matchups coming up. They're playing the Valiant, the Fusion soon. I think they got the Uprising pretty soon as well. So it's these next few matches are going to really decide whether they make it. I think if they go 2-0 this week again, they'll be in. I think if they go 1-1, they're still in good shape. They just need to avoid losing multiple games in a row to some of these teams. And they've looked extremely good this stage. They've looked very good overall the last couple stages. So their chances are looking pretty good. At number 5, we got Philadelphia Fusion. Their playoff chances are also looking pretty darn good. They're sitting at 21-13, map differential of +17. So they did just recently lose 3-1 to the Fuel, and that hurts them a bit. But the Fuel have been playing very well, and they did, after a terrible first half, they came back and played a lot better in the second half. So I don't think there's that much to worry about for them. It's going to be interesting to see if they play Shadowburn more, because they brought him in the second half and the team performed a lot better as a whole, rather than when EQO was in. So we'll see how that situation develops. But I still think the team's looking pretty darn strong. They're in good shape. They do have some tough matchups. So if they drop a couple more games in a row, they could be in the danger zone. But I don't think they will. They're looking pretty strong. Then number 4, we got the slumping Boston Uprising. They're sitting at 22-12. Map differential of +19. So, like I mentioned before, it's a really good thing that they are that they had that 14-match win streak. Because if they didn't, they'd be in big trouble. They have lost 4 in a row to start the stage. They don't look comfortable in the new meta. They don't really know who to play on what. Mistakes has regressed. Striker hasn't had the impact that he had. Neither has Gamsu. So I think they're in some trouble. I think their coaches they've got to be obviously working really hard on coming up with the strategy right now. So this next week is going to be really telling. If they can run some of those newer comps and perform a bit better, I think that they'll be in good shape. That huge win streak gave them the buffer. They've used their buffer with the 4 losses. If they can figure out a way to be better in this meta, they'll be fine. If they can't make those adjustments, though, we could see them dropping a couple more matches. I don't think they'll fall out of the playoffs, but it could get close if the Dynasty and or the Shock, or the Outlaws, not the Shock, and the Outlaws bounce back and go on a win streak. So, I played the game, it's really underwhelming. Anyway, moving on to number 3, Los Angeles Valiant. They're also 22-12, but their map differential is better than Uprising. They're sitting at +27. So the Valiant, I think they're in very good shape to make the playoffs. They got off to another 4-0 start. partially thanks to a very weak schedule once again, and their ability to win 3 in 5. They've been very good on tiebreakers. You got to give them credit for that. So I think that they play the Gladiators on Wednesday. That if Valiant win that match, they basically clinch the Pacific Division, and then they will have the number 2 seed going into the playoffs, which would be huge for them. But if they lose to the Gladiators will only be 1 game behind them, and the map differentials will be pretty close. Valiant will definitely still have an edge there, but they've played their easy matchups for the most part. Their last 6 matches are going to be tough, so if they want that number 2 seed, they're going to have to play very well moving forward. But they're in super good shape to make the playoffs. I don't really see a way that they fall out. Number 2, London Spitfire, 22-12 with a map differential plus 34. They're another team that has a great buffer from the first couple stages where they performed extremely well. They had a bad stage 3. They started this stage out poorly, but they have won their last 2 matchups in close ones against the Shock and the Dynasty. So those were big wins for them. That basically, they're basically in now. Their map differential is so great, and they're 3 games up on 7th place. So they're in really good shape. I think for them it's just they haven't looked that great yet this stage. They've looked better than stage 3, but they still need improvements. The rest of this stage is all about improving for them and finding their best comps and their best strategies to move forward for the playoffs. And speaking of teams that are focusing on the playoffs, New York Excelsior, they've locked down the number 1 seed. They already got the bonus check for placing first. They're 31-3, map differential of plus 81. That's 47 higher than the second place team. And they're also 9 games ahead of second place. So obviously not much to talk about there. Best team in the league by far. They're just going to be working on keeping everyone healthy, everyone fresh, and maybe whipping out some sneaky strategies and holding them for the playoffs. So we've gone through, it took a little longer than I wanted it to, but we've gone through the top 12 teams in order of records and their map differential. Now I'm going to say my power rankings based on what we've seen, obviously, in the last couple of weeks. So at number 12, it's actually going to be the Florida Mayhem. Overall, their record is obviously better than Shanghai, but they've looked terrible in the new meta. They had a map against the Fusion where they literally did not get a single kill. They've lost all their matches, and none of them have been very close, except they put up a decent fight against the Valiant, but they got shellacked by the Excelsior. They got destroyed by the Gladiators. They're not very competitive in any of these. It's like Saya player trying to do all he can, but the rest of the team is just pretty weak, and that's why they're going to be sitting at 12. Number 11, we got the Shanghai Dragons. Like I said, I put them over the Mayhem just because they've had a couple more competitive games than the Mayhem, and they've looked a bit better in this new meta. They looked really bad on it the first couple weeks, but now they've started to adapt to the Brigida a bit more, which is, it's a good sign for them. It's good, but overall, they're still 0-34, and until they get a matchup against the Mayhem, I don't see them beating any teams. So then this is where it gets tough. And at number 10, I'm gonna have to say the Seoul Dynasty. They're winless this stage. They looked a bit better against some teams. Like they barely lost to the Valiant and they barely lost to the Spitfire. But the Valiant and Spitfire didn't look that great in those matchups either. So it's not great for them. They've been really poor. They went back to Jaehong for tank, and that worked out for them towards the end of stage 3. But then it went Reinhardt meta, and Jaehong is absolute garbage at Reinhardt. So you gotta put Miro back in, and you can tell the communication is still a bit thrown off. You got Jaehong going back to support. It's just been kind of ugly. Honestly, I think everyone on their team's been underperforming except for Fleta, and then their last match, Munchkin was really popping off against the Spitfire. He was really trying to carry him to the win there, but it couldn't quite do it. I think their DPS players have been playing well, but their tanks and supports have just been bad. They've been getting picked all the time. Gambler dying a lot on Mercy. Zunba has been a non-factor, it seems, for multiple stages, and even when he pulls out his Zarya, his super hyped up Zarya, still it's fallen flat. So that's why they're going to be number 10. And you would have said that they would be the 10th in the power rankings, below some teams like the Shock and the Fuel, I'd say you're nuts. So then we're going to number 9. We have another team. This team is the highest in the standings that has like fallen. I got the Boston Uprising. They haven't won a match this stage. They looked better as of late. They had a very close game against the Valiant, but they still lost. And it's like, come on, the Boston Uprising in Stage 3 would have beaten the Valiant with ease. So you can tell they've been struggling. Like I had mentioned before, mistakes has been bad. Striker, when he has to play other heroes, he hasn't been as good. I mean, his fair has been good. And he's played well on Junkrat as well, but it's just like, it's not the carry worthy. Gamsu has been a lot weaker on Reinhardt than he was on Winston. When he has to play him, he's gotten outrhined by multiple people, so you got to worry about that. And for those reasons, and the fact that they haven't really integrated Brigida that well to their team either, they're going to be at number 9, and they're in big trouble for the playoffs if they can't figure this out. Like they could get destroyed and bounced out of the playoffs and just embarrassed. I think they'll figure it out, though. I think they'll come up with a strategy that'll at least make them a lot better. I don't think they'll be like a top team like they were in Stage 3, but I think they will definitely improve. So then, this one was tough. This team's actually going to be exactly where they were. It's Houston Outlaws. The thing about Houston, like I said, it's the flexibility. They just don't have the flexibility, and it makes me sad because I like Houston as a team. I talk, me like a lot of other people have talked shit about Jake because obviously like his best hero was Junkrat, and a lot of people associate Junkrat with low skill, and so there's that connotation right there. And I've done the same thing. When they were playing against the Gladiators, I was on a call, like I was in a Discord with a couple of my friends who were also watching, and we were making some fun of him. But I do like Jake overall. I like him as a guy. I think he's a nice dude, and he's a good player. He's just not a flex god, you know. He's not that guy like an EQO or a Libero. He's just not quite to that level. His Hanzo play is pretty good, but Hanzo is decently low skill too, especially on old patch where you got scatter arrows. You pretty much spam into tanks, farm your Dragon Strike, and then you use your Dragon Strike in combo with the Zarya, so it's not super high skill. So I just think because of that, they're not super confident putting Jake on. They're probably the worst dive team in the league. Well, maybe the Fuel. Yeah, the Fuel, Houston would be the second worst easily in the league at that. And Dallas is smart. They haven't tried dive pretty much at all. And that's why they've been winning their games. They've been playing to their strengths, and that's worked out really well for them. The Outlaws should have done this too. They focused too hard on like trying to incorporate dive as well. You should just pick whatever you're best at, their tank heavy comp, and then just find a way to translate that towards more maps. That's what I think, because dive hasn't worked for them for multiple stages now, and that's why they're sitting at number 8. So, again, it's super tough in here. Before this, I would have had the Spitfire lower than them, but since the Spitfire did beat them, I have the San Fran Shock sitting at 7. So, San Fran, they're, like I talked about before, it's just inconsistency with them. I think they're one of the teams in the league where they said that they're a strategies team rather than a matchups team. So what I mean by when I say that is their coaches prepare them. At least this is how they were. I don't know if they still do it because they just brought in a new head coach. But they were a team that they practiced a strategy. And they said, okay, we're going to get really good at this strategy, and we're going to run this strategy, and we're going to run it to the best of our ability, and we don't care what the enemy team is going to do. We're not going to plan for the enemy as much as we're going to plan for us. Which, in Overwatch, I don't like that approach. I think you need to do a bit of both. Like, you need to practice something that you're good at and, like, focus on your strategies, but you also need to think, well, okay, what if we get really good at this strat, but the enemy team has a strat that can just shut it down? Can we pivot and adjust and win a fight with a good switch? Because otherwise Overwatch is a chess match. you can win a couple fights, but then they adjust and then they beat you, and then they're going to keep beating you until you switch. So having a strategy like that, I think, has hurt them before in the past, but they're a team that's looked a lot better. To have them to be at number 7, I think they'd feel pretty good about. I mean, if you talk about, they started out 6-14. Since then, they've been 8-6. So once they've gotten all their pieces in, Architects, Sinatra, Super, they've been a lot better. They've been beating some good teams, and they're look for them next year. They're going to be a very good team next year, I believe. So then at number 6, it's the London Spitfire. So they still don't look great. They barely beat a weak Seoul team. They barely beat the Shock. They did look pretty good in that Shock game, but their offense has just looked really weak at points. And they're solid defensively. Birdring's been playing a lot better. He's been getting back to form, but they still haven't been playing that well. And that's very alarming for me. I'm super concerned about the Spitfire. I don't know if they can get back to that level where they can compete with the Excelsior at this point. I just don't know. It seemed like Prophet was playing really well. I can't really point to like a person or whatever that was dragging the team down. They weren't playing that well. I think their communication and just team fire and everything has just been bad. Because there were times when, like, I was watching them and they'd get a first pick and they wouldn't win the fight. And I just don't think they're being aggressive enough. And I think their confidence is still just a bit shot. So we'll see if they can get it back together. But at this point, I don't know. It's getting scary. I want someone to at least, if New York wins the whole league, that's cool. I like New York. I like their guys. I'd be totally okay with that. But I want it to be close. I don't want them to blow everyone out of the water come playoff time. So hopefully London gets it together. But because they just haven't looked that great for like a stage and a half now, they're sitting at number 6. And number 5, we got the Dallas Fuel. So if you would have told me they'd be in the top 5 of power rankings, I'd say you're crazy. But they beat the Fusion, who are a great team. They are still going to be below the Fusion in my power rankings, though, because I think that especially the first couple games, the Fusion kind of got ambushed, and they didn't really know what to expect. Fusion have been an inconsistent team for all of Overwatch League, and in the second half they won the third map with ease, basically, and they barely lost the fourth map. If they had edged out that fourth map, I think they win Game 5 on Control. Fusion's been great on Control. That's been one of Fuel's weaker maps. So I think this match is really close to being a reverse sweep for Fusion. But obviously you still got to give Dallas a ton of credit. That was a woulda, coulda, shoulda. They won the match. It's great for them. But I can't put them over Fusion just because of their overall record and because they also have kind of flexibility issues. They're really good at running like the Brigida comps and like your kind of tankish heavy comps, but if they ever have to run dive, it's going to be really ugly. On Widow, Taimu's been really popping off, but he's a really streaky guy, so maybe he has like another good match or two, like really good, but then he kind of slumps for a couple matches, and I see them definitely losing matches if that happens. So because of those issues and because the sample size isn't huge, I really like what Dallas has been doing. They're way improved, no doubt, but I can't put them higher than 5 just because it has only been 4 matches. But lots of great things to see from the Fuel. Hopefully their fans are enjoying it after a long, terrible season. At least there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Moving on to number 4. This one I went back and forth, and I'm going with the LA Valiant. This could obviously change after this week. Since stage 2, I've thought that the Gladiators are a better team than the Valiant. I still think they are. I think the Fusion are a better team than them. I'm a bit low on the Valiant, and it's not because they're rivals to my team. Trust me, it's not. I think their skill cap, I still think their skill cap is a bit lower. And the lack of a dominant Widow, if they had Saya Player, if Valiant had like signed Saya Player instead of Florida, whoa, they'd be the number 2 team in the league in my opinion, easily. But they don't have that Widow presence, So they have a little bit of flexibility issues, even though Space has been playing a great Zarya. He's also still extremely good at the Diva. Fate has been great on Reinhardt. He's a very, very good Reinhardt, but he's also still great Winston, so you can run a lot of stuff. I think Custa has actually been a bit weak. I always thought Custa was a good guy for the team, great guy to have, like, morale-wise and just like strategy-wise, and he's a smart guy, he's a nice guy. Can't say enough good things about him as a person, but his mechanical skill has always, I thought, been a bit weaker than a lot of the other really good supports in the league. It's a little underwhelming. Kariva's been really, really good on Zen. I think he's definitely up there with some of the better Zens in the league. So overall, they do have a good support line, but when they've struggled, it's always because either Fate is getting blown up early and him and Space are kind of disconnected, or it's because Custa's dying a lot. So I think that they do have their little weak issues there, and soon he just loses the Widow duels to the best Widows in the league. He just doesn't win them. So because of those reasons, I got Valiant at number 4. They're definitely up there with the top echelon of teams, but because they don't have that Widow, I can't put them over the top yet. And sitting at number 3, the Philly Fusion. So they've suffered their first loss at the hands of the Fuel, but they were 3-0 before that. They looked very good in this meta. Sato's looked great. Hotba's been very solid as well. I would like to see Poco every now and again, and if you want to pair him with Fraggy on Rhine maps, because I still think Fraggy's a better Rhine than Sato, but Sato's been playing well. And like I said, last game they were down 0-2, they were getting crushed. They pivoted, they took out EQO and put in Shadowburn. I don't think anyone saw that coming, and that gave them a nice boost. Wasn't enough for them to win, but I like Philly's coaching a lot. I think that they're good at coming up with good strategies. They know their players. I think the morale of this team is good. Carpe is obviously insane on Widow. EQO is a flex god. Shadowburn, if you want him to come in and spot on Junkrat and Pharah, he'll destroy people. I think their supports are a bit underrated. Well, Neptuno is overrated in my opinion. He's overrated. He makes stupid decisions a lot of the time, but he gets bailed out by his team a lot. But I think Boombox is really underrated as Zen. He does a great job of staying alive. He does all the things. He kills people that charge him. He discords good targets. He has a Harmony Orb on the right people. I think he's really underrated, and because they're one of the more flexible teams in the league, that's why I have them at number 3. Plus, they've been solid all season. Inconsistency with they'll have a bad match here and there, but I mean, 21-13, they've been good the whole season. And that brings me to number 2, which is the LA Gladiators. I think that last stage they were like 3 or 4, maybe 5, in terms of like best teams. But this stage has helped them. They've had to rely on Tracer a lot less because their Tracer players aren't the best. But if they need to run dive, they've shown that they can still run dive and win maps with basically Surefour on the Tracer now. And it's been pretty decent. Maybe they'll bring Asher back. But Silk Thread and Asher have basically been forgotten, it seems at this point. They're focusing on Hydration and Surefour, which I'm okay with. It makes me a little sad that Asher and Silk Thread haven't played as much, because Silk Thread I thought has been good whenever they played him, and Asher, he's just streaky. He's in a rut. Had some very bad matches, and towards the end of stage 3, so I understand why they're rolling with those two. That's kind of their hot lineup right now. Also, they have Void in. He was pretty unimpressive in his first couple matches, but I mean, he just got over. He just started playing. All these teammates are new to him except for Fissure. So I think that this team is just insanely stacked. Bishu's playing the best he's ever played. Fissure is Fissure. Surefour has been improving just steadily every time. Hydration is one of the most underrated players in the entire league. Shaz is the second best Zenyatta in the league. Big Goose has really improved his Mercy play. And I just think this team is super well-rounded. They're super diverse. They can play so many different heroes. That flexibility is nice. I honestly think the weak point of their team right now might be their coaching. Sometimes their strategies are just too predictable and too dried out. It's like I just talked about how flexible their team is, but sometimes the coaches just don't utilize that. And maybe part of that is on the players. They don't adjust fast enough in game. or they don't like say to the coach like, this really hasn't worked for us. But I just think right now they're the second best team in the league. Like I said, the Battle of LA on Wednesday is going to show us a whole lot. Also, match 1, Excelsior versus Fusion, should be very interesting to see how Philly does against them. But yeah, because their trajectory and the way they're playing right now, I got Gladiators at number 2. And then number 1, of course, no disputing this. If someone says New York isn't the best team in the league, they're insane. I was on record saying I thought it was the Spitfire up until like the end of stage 2. When New York won the stage 2 playoffs, I was like, okay, they finally won the stage playoffs. That means that they're the top team until someone proves us otherwise. And no one has done that yet. No one has been close. I mean, Seoul's dropped off. Fusion gave them a really good run in the stage 2 finals. But New York, just when they wanted to, they came back and they won it. The Spitfire have not been able to stand up to them. The Valiant got crushed by them in the semis, and I think it's the same story if they play again. Uprising couldn't beat them at their peak, and now they've fallen off. So who can beat them? I'm going to be very interested to see the Gladiator Excelsior match this stage. I think that'll tell us a lot about the Gladiators as well. They had a very close match in stage 3. But yeah, right now, no one is on the level. No one is on the level. We still got 6 weeks left, or 6 weeks. We got 3 weeks left, 6 matches, and then obviously there's a bit of a break, and then we got the playoffs. So these next 3 weeks, it's all about who can improve the most and who can show that they can maybe put up a fight against the Excelsior. So, this video went a little long. Voice is getting tired. Need some water. That's going to be all for my power rankings. Let me know what you think about them. Let me know if you think are the Gladiators way too high? Is Seoul way too low? Whatever it is. Are the Shock way too high? Is Valiant too low? Whatever it is, let me know. If you want to just comment your list, that would be cool. And I like doing these type of videos where I just talk about like the teams and what I think about them. Blah blah. Rambling on and on about what I think. So hopefully you guys enjoy them too. And then I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the part 1 of predictions for week 3 of stage 4. It's insane. We're getting down to the nitty gritty here. As soon as we know it, the playoffs are going to be starting, and that's going to be insane. So hopefully you guys watch some Overwatch League. Hopefully you guys like the video. And then hope you have a great couple days, and I'll see you on Wednesday.